Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Arsehole podcast recording on the whistle on Monday night. We've just lost to Newcastle 2-0, and with it, basically out of the Champions League hunt. It's a really, really crap evening. I've got Aaron and Miles with me to share and just try and get through this pain somehow and put some sense into what we've seen. We're going to try our best anyway. This completely unstructured episode of just raw feeling. We did have to take 5 or so minutes before recording, though, just to gather our thoughts a little bit. I think this is probably the most reluctant any of us have been to do an episode. But guys, thank you for being with me during this very difficult time.
It is difficult, mate, but hopefully this will be a bit like a group therapy session. And I don't know, maybe we'll come out of this in the next hour or so and be convinced that Temo Pukki is the new Lionel Messi.
Right? Like, you know what? At the moment, I thought about this before. I thought about, stranger things have happened. There are players in that Norwich team who probably feel like that might be the last Premier League game they ever play in their careers. They might want to go in the shop window. But do you know what? Right now, I don't even think that's the issue. I just don't see us being able to beat Everton on Sunday anyway. But I mean, I guess not getting too far ahead. I don't know what even the best way to start this episode is, but I guess maybe Arteta gave his interview after this game, and it was really cold. It was really damning, and he didn't mince his words. He said it all out there. He said that effectively we were rubbish. Newcastle were the better team the whole game. We didn't deserve anything from the game, and couldn't make sense of how we performed that way. Aaron, do you agree?
Yeah, I think, look, if you look at the performance, and I'm sure we can dig into why, there is absolutely no question about if we deserve to win or even if we deserve to draw. Like, we deserve to lose that game 2-3, maybe even 4-0. We didn't show up. Whatever Arteta did to try and make it better didn't work. And then by the end, it was just, hope something would get a bit lucky, maybe a deflection, but none of that. We were unlucky. We didn't play well. There were probably a few questionable refereeing decisions, but I'm not saying that the referee had any massive impact on this game, but it was one of those where we didn't play well, but on top of that, everything, we didn't get a single bit of luck that might have just got us over the line on a night like this. But yeah, no questions. Like, we deserve to lose, basically.
It was a game, right? When you contrast it to the Tottenham game, Tottenham, we came back reflecting. We were still very disappointed with the result, but there was lots that we could sort of say that didn't go our way and that was unlucky, and maybe on another day that's not given, and you need those 50-50s. This really wasn't a game about 50-50s, was it? This was just a kind of unadulterated, no excuses loss. Was there anything that you can think would have given reason for such a bad performance?
Yeah, I mean, look, the last time we spoke, obviously after Spurs, I sort of took a different view to a lot of Arsenal fans. I think I had a different view to you guys in terms of, referee decisions, the penalty incident, and I didn't feel like the players really, considering it was a North London derby, were either weren't up for the game. Started okay the first 5 or 10 minutes, but I didn't really feel like they were up for the game, except for Rob Holding, and I felt like the occasion, the atmosphere, really did affect them. And whether that's just down to lack of experience, lack of being in that sort of position before, I don't know. And I kind of, I predicted we'd lose today when we did our predictions the other day. And I put that down to, a big part of that was, it looked like the defense was going to be a very makeshift defense. And obviously that wasn't actually the case, despite probably 2 out of the 4 not being fully fit. But the main reason that I thought we'd lose today was I just thought, kind of a bit what Gary Neville said, really. I think it was Gary Neville. Not just the fact that, it was a Monday night game and, the whole narratives at James's Park under the lights, blah, blah, blah. But mentality wise, I really wasn't sure if these players were, two quite tough away games in a row, two games where the crowd are really going to be up for it, and two games where, especially this one, where the pressure was really on. Like, I guess the Spurs game, the pressure wasn't on from a points perspective, but the pressure was on from a North London derby perspective. And then today, the pressure was absolutely on because Spurs won as yesterday. And I honestly think I think I used the words, I think the players might cave at St. James's Park, something like that. I think I said, and I think that's kind of what happened today, basically. And I'm not happy. I'm not happy that kind of my predictions come true, but I think you could kind of see it in a lot of just the way the game went on Thursday. It felt like it really took a lot out of these players. And yeah, I mean, you could put it down to a number of different things, makeshift, nerves were it was very, very obvious, right? From the first minute, Ramsdale slipped over the first 60 seconds or whatever, that playing out from the back, and we almost conceded when he tried to pass out and Newcastle attacker blocked it, and luckily it doesn't go in. There were lots of things that were just indicating and sort of leading us to where the result that we ended up getting. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the reason is, and I guess that's what we're going to explore and talk about. But for me, I think to a certain extent the writing was on the wall a little bit, because I just felt like I'm not sure. I just felt like going into this game, if ideally it would have just been nice to have Newcastle at home, for example. And I just thought going away, just something about it, I felt like there was maybe it's what we were talking about in the group chat during the game. There's just not really that many leaders in this team, and the leaders, like Erdegaard's a leader. He's the captain at the moment. He's a leader by the way he plays, and I know he presses and all the rest of it. But where's the guy who, when it's 1-0 down and we've got half an hour to go, where's the guy who grabs a couple of players by the scruff, literally by the neck, and says, right, come on, boys, we're going to do this. We're going to give it our all. There isn't that player in the team. You sometimes look at Xhaka and you see it, but I don't think he is the guy for that. And I really think it was just a mentality thing, because I think, you see in patches over the course of the season, the quality is there, right? Even though we haven't had a main striker all season, or a top level striker, we've still kept ourselves in that 4th, 5th position for most of the season, or for at least the second half of the season. So the quality is there, and I personally think it's mainly down to a mentality thing, and I think that North London derby must have taken a hell of a lot out of them and knocked a lot of the confidence out of them as well.
I mean, talking about the leaders and the dressing room and the players, etc., is worth touching on in Xhaka's interview that he just gave now, right? Because it's worth, before kind of jumping into the interview itself, Granit Xhaka is someone who is clearly very, very respected by his teammates. He's someone who was captain under Emery, that was elected captain under Emery. He always, by all reports, he's someone who the players like, managers like, is a good influence in the dressing room. We just seen his interview now after the game, and he's sort of fronted up. Fair enough. I suppose you have to pat him on the back, or anyone on the back, for fronting up after a game like this. But his words were pretty cold, right? As well. He really, really, I think what was two things that were interesting. One, I think that he was very explicit that the players didn't do what the coach told them to do. He said that twice in his interview very clearly. He said the coach gave us instructions, coach tells us what to do, we didn't do it. And then he basically very clearly sort of called out the fact that you can't make any excuses about age, whether you're 35 years old, 25 years old, 10 years old. He specifically said, if you haven't got the balls to play, you should stay at home. And I mean, that's pretty cutting. I don't know if there was something that would have happened in the changing room, just, even after the game, just, before he came out. But did that surprise you? I mean, Aaron, did that surprise you what he said? Because that's clearly someone, again, who is a respected figure in the dressing room, effectively calling out the mentality of his team.
I don't like the fact that he came out and said it, but there is an element of truth in what he said, but it's not something that's surprising. It's not something that's unexpected, and we should, as a team, have been prepared for this. So I'll explain. So at the end of the day, I think if you kind of look at the reasons we've kind of crumbled in the last, not just the last 2 or 3 games, but really the last 7 or 8. I think we've lost 6 out of our last 11, right? So I think you can kind of put it down to like 2 things, right? We've basically got some really good players who aren't experienced enough, and then we've got some really experienced players who aren't good enough. And I think Granit Xhaka is probably one of those guys who's maybe just about in the middle and probably doesn't fit into those categories where he is experienced and he's been okay in these last few months, but he hasn't really been, top quality except for a few games here and there. And what I think he's probably quite frustrated when the ball goes forward like it did today, nothing happened, right? It didn't happen with Saka. Saka did a bit, but couldn't really make it work. Odegaard couldn't really make it work. Martinelli couldn't really make it work. Nketiah couldn't make it work. Smith Rowe couldn't make it work. And I think he's probably looking at that and is probably very frustrated, right? Which is like, I've got a bunch of kids going forward trying to get us a goal and it's not working. And that's probably why he's come out and said that. And I think the truth is, like, there is an element of truth there. All of them didn't really play that well, right? But he's also completely forgetting the fact that we have a bunch of senior players who also haven't delivered, right? The likes of El Neni, the likes of Cedric, the likes of Pepe when he came on, Xhaka, Holding in the last game. Like, all these players have also let us down in the last couple of games as well. But the reason I don't think he should have said it is, well, I don't think you dig out players like that anyway. I don't understand what he gains by coming out and saying that. Like, the only thing he's doing that is to make himself look like
it's just frustration,
like a leader.
Isn't it?
It's frustration, yeah. But
I don't really have too much
when his teammates see that, like, what's he gonna?
I don't
like.
Think
It doesn't
care. Do you really think they're going to be? I mean, is there anything that? I mean, to be honest, I think part of it was he was just answering a question, which was something along the lines of, "Do you think the age of this team, or maybe maturity of this team, like lack of maturity, is what kind of cost you today?" Something, I don't know. I'm paraphrasing, but
yeah,
it was something like that. So I think obviously he has to give an answer. Granit Xhaka's Granit Xhaka. He's pretty straightforward and to the point. I think he's given an answer to the point. I don't think that, if I don't know, I wouldn't see myself getting pissed off if I'm his teammate, because I don't think he's pointing the finger at me directly. I think he's just saying he's basically answering the question, also saying, yeah, we weren't. It's kind of like what Arteta said, really. We weren't at it today. And I think it was quite clear that we did cut. Do you not think we caved today? Like, it's obviously not a quality thing.
No, but my point is, right, and like, when you've got these young players, you will get this. Like, it's no surprise that these players who have never been in this situation before, the likes of Martinelli, the likes of Saka, the likes of Smith Rowe, even at the back, players like who are a bit older but still not exactly, experienced, players like Gabriel, Ramsdale, Ben White, Tavares to a certain extent. None of them have been in this situation before. None of them have been in a run-in where they've had to deliver against the odds, sometimes when you play well, sometimes when you don't play well. And at that point, they look to the senior players to say, okay, like, I'm not playing well here. I need an experienced player to come on and like bail this team out. And there's no one. Who do we bring on? We bring on Lacazette, who hasn't scored in open play for months. And we bring on Pepe, who hasn't done anything.
I mean, that's a separate thing, isn't it? Right? That's sort of about squad depth and quality through the squad, and especially the experienced players. We all know we've got a good group of young players that should hopefully reach a level that, might take us back to the top, as it were. But they obviously need to be supplemented with, the quality and the experience. But Granit Xhaka saying that in an interview, I don't really see what the problem is, to be honest.
I think probably the only thing, because I agree with you, Mize, that I think that I don't really have an issue with what he said, because I actually think from when you watch that game, that's what it looked like to us anyway, right? So we were screwing all game at the mentality and just why they weren't able to rise to the occasion in any way. I think what might have, I don't know whether this was intentional or not. If you give him the benefit of the doubt, then it was probably unintentional. It didn't sound like he was referring to himself in this as well. And if he made it explicit, say if he said, listen, I'm including myself in this, like, I was terrible or whatever.
We're nitpicking though, aren't we? Right.
We are a little bit, but again, yeah. I think that the way that it was delivered, although I agreed with much. I personally agreed with every word. I did. And I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I think the reason why it could be interpreted in a challenging way, for him, in a critical way for him, is it sounded like he was sort of preaching about it, when in reality he was garbage today, and in my opinion was garbage against Spurs as well. And I mean that more from a mentality perspective. So maybe, if I'm being harsh, and I think with Aaron, and like with all the stuff that you said, I agree with most of it. And I agree with the assessment that you made, kind of about how you can almost split our squad into two parts. But I'd change one bit of it. You sort of said sort of experienced players who aren't very good. I agree with that. And you said sort of, very good players who aren't experienced. I'd probably change that to say very talented players who aren't experienced. I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced that you can call many of these guys very good players yet, because I feel that comes with consistency. I think to be
I'd agree with that. I think we have to ask ourselves, was it a wise strategy to bank on all of these players playing together and expecting them to deliver consistently for a whole season? Because that was basically our plan. That was always the plan, right? And if you say that, then maybe fourth was an overachievement for that.
Yeah, exactly. And right? I think that it's important to put that into context as well, right? Because we got hope. We looked like we thought we would finish fourth at the beginning of the year. We hoped, we all had this slight hope, but we didn't think it was going to happen. And now, because it looked like it could be a possibility, we're disappointed, particularly with the way, as you saw on Sky Sports anyway, they flashed up loads of graphics. And at one point, a few months ago, we were fourth place with 3 games in hand to Tottenham, with, a number of points above, right? And it was, when you look at it like that, you get really frustrated, don't you?
Yeah, you can't not. And, the questions that will be asked about this team are valid, right? Which is, regardless, this team has shown that we have a serious problem performing under pressure. When the pressure's on in these big games, and you said it, Myers, like they went to White Hart Lane, we went to St. James's Park, and, you knew, and kind of at the back of my mind also worried that this was a difficult atmosphere and they couldn't really step up. The reason I'm giving these young players a bit of a pass is because, the idea is that when they go through this, next time they learn from it, right? This is the first time this bunch of young players have gone through this. And this is the first time they would have, it's almost like you're not have to go through this process of knowing what it's like in these big games and figuring out what you need to do in these big games. And that's where you need the experienced players. That's where you need a player like Granit Xhaka to step up. When a player like Lacazette comes on to say, I'm going to take charge of this attack. Pepe, to a certain extent, he's 26, 27. He needs to be like, I'm a serious guy. I'm going to come in and show you young players how to take control of a game. And none of them have done that. And so I think that's really where my frustration lies, which is there was always, when you bring any young player into a squad, even if you bring one young player into the squad, you run the risk of them having a patch where they're just not able to do it, where they haven't yet figured out the maturity to win a game by themselves. And we've got 5 of them, and then a couple of young players who probably aren't good enough either. And then you throw them on with defenders like Cedric, who just constantly make mistakes, players like El Neni, who are lovely guy but very, very limited. And I think Xhaka's probably the reason Xhaka's probably frustrated. He's probably not bad enough to be a bad squad player, but he's not good enough to win a game, especially in the position he plays. He's never going to win the game for us by himself. But he looks around and is like, who is there to run this team?
Yeah,
and it's not him. And I think if you look at our squad, the only player who's got that sweet spot is Thomas Partey, and man, have we missed him.
We missed him a lot more than I thought that we would. Okay, maybe that's not true. Maybe I did think that we would miss him, but I think we've really realised that. And what I was about to say is that we really realised how limited our central midfield is without him. I think whenever I say that out loud, whenever we talk about it in that way, I feel a little bit harsh because I do feel El Neni has chipped in really well over this period, and we've got some good results with him in the central midfield. But like you say, I think my issue with El Neni, I'm never really angry with him. It's never really a case where I'm there going, you've lost us a game, or you've let us down, because at the end of the day, he is just a pretty limited player, and he'll put lots of effort in, but there's just a lot that he can't do. And over the last 2 games, I feel they've both been games which we've been crying out for central midfield control and a bit of domination, both in the Spurs games and in this game. And he doesn't give you that very easily. He's certainly not going to give you that in a progression perspective, because again, today, the amount of times where he'd get the ball and Partey would probably try something a little bit daring. He'd probably he'd get forward very quickly in about 2 strides and then sort of flick a kind of lofted through ball, something interesting. It might not work half the time, but it might sometimes. But El Neni won't do that. And there was so many backwards, sideways stuff. So I think that as much as I have been quite critical, I think, sometimes on this episode, on this podcast, or when we've spoken on private, I've been quite critical about overrating our young players. I've said, are they actually good enough? By far, I think I agree with you. I think I agree with, what you're saying. I think you and I are on the same page, Aaron, and in the sense that for me, it's our experienced players that have let us down, to be honest. And some of that is through just their quality, not necessarily that they've let us down because, they've not been bothered. But some of it, like today, I feel like they must have, as a senior group of players, they must have just spoken to each other before the game and just said, we're really going to need to show up. We're really going to need to show the rest of these guys how to, handle this situation. We have to lead by example. And that, unfortunately, for me, it's inexplicable how that didn't happen. I don't just mean the guys who started. I mean your Lacazettes, your Pepes, Cedrics, all these guys. You've got a part to play, and they just didn't for me. And I'm finding it really, really hard to reconcile that. And and I wonder if the dust settles a little bit, whether actually I'm going to blame Arteta a little bit. I don't know.
Well, I'll ask you that question.
Yeah.
Okay, no, wait. First, I think I definitely agree with you that the more, when you put it like that, players like Lacazette, players like Cedric, I don't know if I want to put El Neni in this, but even players like Aubameyang, who buggered off in January because he, had attitude problems. They were cowards and they hid behind players like Saka, Smith Rowe, Erdegaard, and then to a certain extent Martinelli to bail them out. And you take, let's just say, like, you take players like Lacazette out of this team, what would we miss? Nothing. You take Saka out of this team, we'd miss a lot. You take Martinelli out of this team, you take Erdegaard out of this team. So I agree there's frustration with these young players, but you take them out of the team and we have nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there is no one else to even try and step up and to constantly rely on them to bail us out. And I say, especially this with a focus on Saka, because he's looked done for the last 3 or 4 games. He's looked exhausted because he's basically carried this team for a year and a half. And the one time where he wasn't performing, he was crying out to say, someone else step up and carry this team. And, in an ideal world, maybe that might have been Nketiah, maybe that might have been Smith Rowe, maybe that might have been Martinelli. And there are questions on them to say, why didn't they step up? Are they not ready? Are they not good enough? But someone else somewhere had to do a job. And
it should have been. It should have been Pepe. It should have been Lacazette. It should have been those guys.
Yeah. It should have been Aubameyang if he'd wanted to stay and be part of this team and commit. And then, there is a responsibility on the manager and Edu to say, I'm banking on this, and if it goes wrong, what is the plan B? What is the plan B when Saka stops scoring? What is the plan B if Martinelli, Smith Rowe all hit a bad patch at the right time? What is the plan when we go into a difficult game where we need someone to step up? Who do I bring on? And he basically decided that Lacazette and Nketiah were the answers, and it's a gamble that hasn't paid off, right? And this is when you go back to saying you want to ask questions of the manager and the team. Like, are those questions transfer questions or are they tactical questions? Because I think it's fair to say, the squad management has been quite poor, right? And I was thinking today, like, we let Maitland-Niles go in January, right? Like, imagine that was January, right? I'm making that up. When we let Maitland-Niles go.
Yeah, it was January, right?
Imagine having Maitland-Niles in the squad right now.
Yeah, I think.
Like these little things make a difference.
I don't know, mate. I think if Maitland-Niles was, I think this. I mean,
not Maitland, like little things, right? Like we let Chambers go. Like, I know Chambers was never going to win us this game, right? But
it's all hindsight, though, isn't it? I mean, yeah,
it is. But like we took. I
mean, if Maitland-Niles was in the squad and he was coming on and playing shit like a few other players are, I think we'd probably be the first to be gunning him, saying I want to sell him in the summer. Like, there's very little point, really, for me anyway. I think there's very little point in sort of talking. I mean, you can say that, but at the same time, the squad, from a squad management perspective, we aren't in Europe we haven't been in Europe this season. So why there were players that wanted to probably go last summer that didn't go. Money came in for Chambers. I think it was good money from what I remember. I don't know. Was it good money? I think it was.
It was
20. Was it 20 million? Or I'm making that
I don't think it was
I think Chambers was really low, wasn't it?
Oh, was it? Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, but I get your point. I think it was more just that there are a lot of like micro gambles that we took with this squad. And, even like some of the ones that might have looked like good ideas. And yeah, this is hindsight, but that's kind of what we hear. Like, we got Tavares in as our backup left back to be like, we know Kieran Tierney's going to struggle. He hasn't really worked out yet.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I think it's tough, mate, because I think that we do remember bad moments, right? A lot more than we remember the good moments. But there was definitely a period early on season when we lost Tierney that Tavares was surprising everyone with how good he was.
Well, I agree. And he's a young player as well, right? So I'm not writing him off completely. He had good moments, but he's also had bad moments.
Yeah.
I didn't think he was particularly bad today, right?
No,
but I'm just saying, like,
all of these decent today.
Yeah, all of these like little micro decisions. Some of it's just bad luck. Like, we brought Lokonga in as our kind of backup central midfielder. That hasn't worked out.
But then you've got to think like, okay, but you've got to frame it in the way that we didn't. Because I've said this already. We don't have European football. We didn't have European football, and the whole squad, like the renovation of the squad, has like, it's still probably taking place now. It's taken place over the last couple of years and it's still taking place now. So you're saying this on the basis that top four was this is a separate conversation, but top four was the target at the start of the season. You're only saying this now because of how the season's panned out.
Yeah.
Right. If we'd have brought in Lokonga and Tavares and they'd have kind of done jobs and shown potential, but not really been ready for the first team, but we'd have gone from 8th to 5th in the last few games and finished 5th, which is where we're going to finish now, you probably wouldn't be saying that, right? So if the target at the start of the season was never Champions League, if the target at the start of the season was Champions League, then of course, we probably should have. And also, I don't think you can really factor in what happened with Aubameyang, because we've been saying all season. I mean, we probably should have predicted his form wasn't going to be as good considering the last season. Fair enough, but I think you probably said, Aaron, and right, kind of an Aubameyang at 50%. Playing 30 odd games a season probably still gets you more goals than Lacazette and Nketiah do, right? And no one could have predicted that we were just going to let Aubameyang go in the middle of the season and he wasn't going to play from whatever it was, November, because of disciplinary issues. Like, we didn't know that was going to happen. So you could argue we could have addressed that in January, and obviously we did try to. But I think I think it just sounds like there's a lot of kind of like, we should have done this, we shouldn't have done that.
No, I guess
I'm not sure. I don't buy that.
Some of that. I think my general point is that, how do I put this? There's been a combination of gambles. I think generally there's been a lot of gambles that have not worked out when it's come to the squad. Now, is that? And I guess the question is, did we take too many with this squad?
So that your question there, right? So aside from the Aubameyang one, which I think we all accept, there's lots that we just don't know. We obviously don't know. so many things that clearly have happened. So let's just ignore the Aubameyang one for a second. Which of the other gambles do you think didn't really work out?
I think there are a couple of things that didn't work out right. So we gambled on, signing young players generally. So, and there's a question you can ask about: did we not supplement the squad with enough experience in the transfer window? I'm not saying I would have done differently. Like, we were all very excited about the young squad that we're building. Right, in another world, Tavares turns out to be a brilliant left back and keeps.
But can I just put
right?
for guys? So, but the reason why we were excited even at that time, we weren't excited because we thought that was going to get us top 4 this season.
Exactly.
So we were excited about it. So that shouldn't have changed. So that wasn't. So we knew that was going to be the case.
Yeah. Fair. Okay, I get that. I think my bigger issue is with the gambles that we took in January, where we let Aubameyang go, and I think again I'm broadly in favour of that because his attitude wasn't right, and in the long term it might have cost us more points.
And again we don't know what happened.
And we have no idea what he was doing exactly. Yeah. But it's safe to assume there was an issue there with Aubameyang.
Yeah.
And we didn't get anyone in. We didn't really get a central midfielder in, where I felt we should have done. Ironically, the guy we were chasing was the guy who kind of killed the game off today for us. And yeah, I think they were probably the two main things I would say. I think we basically, and we've discussed this before, we probably don't need to go into it again, but we basically made a call in January to say almost that I don't think if we don't get top 4 because we don't have that killer instinct in the box, then it's okay. And we're happy with that because it will mean that we will probably have more in the summer that we can commit with. Which is okay, I'd rather not sign a bad player now that might hinder us in the long term.
Yeah.
Versus, a bad player will just go all out to try and find someone or overpay or whatever, because actually the long-term plan is more important.
Yeah. Do you not like, and do you disagree with that?
Not really. I think it's more just the frustration that actually, I don't think we thought we'd be this close in January. I don't think we realistically thought we'd genuinely challenge for 4th in January. And therefore, I think if you go to Arteta now and say, would you have found a 20 million striker, 30, whatever, and found an extra 30 million per striker that may have just helped out players like Saka, Martinelli, and Nketiah to get them over the line in one of these games, I think you'd probably say, yeah.
So I suppose a follow-up to that is, I understand that, say if you told him that, I've said, you're going to be really close. So, hey, you're going to get more money from the Champions League anyway. So just, I don't know, spend 20 million that you weren't going to spend before. And, whatever, that plus wages, you could probably cover that with your Champions League money, etc. Do you guys think, maybe I'll go to you, Miles, for this. Do you think that there was ever a case where their reason for not pushing ahead with a strategy like that was because they thought, we've got a very clear plan of what we can afford over the next, I don't know, however many years. And we genuinely do think we can build a squad that is able to compete in the Champions League, in 2-3 years. And we think that, but it's going to take some strategic planning in windows, etc. Do you think there was any element where they thought, look, if we just push in January to just do some fixes that we think are going to get us top 4, that might not actually be the best thing for us, because we might not be able to build a squad that's able to compete in the Premier League, in the Champions League next season? We'd rather kind of take it a bit slower, carry on with this strategy, and make sure that everyone kind of peaks at this great time and the plan just goes perfectly.
I'm not sure that's the case. I think it's a combination of what Aaron said around, in January, was top 4 ever really the target? Did we realistically think we'd be 4 points clear going into that Spurs game, 3 games to go? And I think also clearly Vlahovic was the target. Well, you can only believe what you read, right? And what Fabrizio and other people tweet, but it sounds like that was the target, or he was the target, sorry. That didn't happen. He was the 70 odd million pound striker that we were after. And assuming that you then go to plan B and he's also another 50, 60, 70, 80 million pound striker, might just be a case of that target wasn't available in January, and they wanted to stick to that plan, which is try and get that target or those targets in the summer. And yeah, I think personally that's what I think. I think it's a combination of that. But to be honest, like, I don't know, boys, I feel like all of this is just like, why are we even talking? I do feel like, why are we even talking about this to a certain extent? Because it wasn't that long ago we just beat Leeds and we were like, fucking hell, these boys are good. Even though we didn't play amazingly against Leeds, we just gone on four on the bounce and beaten Chelsea, West Ham, and Man United, and there was no talk of any of this. So this is all...
but I don't ever think we ever considered that this team was good. I think the feeling was we have a very, very limited team, especially with the injuries that we had, and we are basically squeezing the maximum possible out of every single one of those players.
A bit harsh. You said this team is not good. I don't know if that seems
the team that we, with the injuries, right? The teams that. So I mean, like we had a team with Nketiah, we had a team with El Neni, we had Cedric.
That's the same team that played against Chelsea, right? I mean,
yeah, that's what I mean. Over the last kind of 4 or 5 games,
yeah, we put 4 past Chelsea and played pretty well. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like this is like, obviously we're going to react to what happened just now and what happened against Spurs. But I don't know. Like, we weren't talking about, obviously we all know where the kind of holes are in the squad and what we want to do in the summer, but we weren't talking about, well, we didn't sign a striker in January after winning 4 in a row, and when we went on a run, just beat Villa 1-0 and we were, I think, 6 points clear. Was it 6 points?
Isn't that natural though, Mike? Aren't you gonna, if after you win, you're gonna obviously reflect on the things that went well, and after you put
no, but I guess after we won and we won that run, I don't think any of us were getting carried away and saying, right, we're definitely going to finish top 4 and then next season we're going to do this. Like, no one was getting carried away, but I feel like we're getting a little bit carried away in terms, not carried away, maybe I just feel like we're reacting a little bit to stuff that we've known for the last few months. And yeah, in hindsight, of course, yeah, if we could have got in a 20-30 million pound strike, it probably would have made a difference. Would it have been enough? Who knows? But yeah, I
think it's fair enough. So maybe that's a good opportunity to just like change the lens a bit and look forward. Yeah. So if we look forward at this point, right, barring a bloody miracle, which I think none of us believe is going to happen, so there's no point talking about it, we are going to finish 5th. We're not going to finish 4th, right? So we'll be playing Europa League football this, in the summer. Allegedly, some of the sounds that have been coming out over the last however many months has been that the strategy that we have in place for the summer doesn't really change. I don't know whether you believe that or not, but allegedly, kind of, there's a strategy that they know the sorts of players that they want to get in the summer, and they're going to crack on with that strategy. Do you think, stepping back from it, this is a season now? We finished 8th, we're now 5th. We're going to play in the Europa League. The squad's going to be a little bit older. The younger players in the squad are going to be a bit older. There's certainly going to be some players leaving, this summer now, some of the older guard, and there'll be some players moving, coming in. Are you, Aaron, and I'll go to you for this. Do you feel optimistic? I know this is a tough night to feel any sort of optimism, but do you feel optimistic, just with kind of bearing in mind everything that I've just said, and anything else you think we should take into account?
Yeah, I do. There's still a lot to be excited about with this team, and the good thing is, hopefully we will learn from this. Like I said, I feel like with this team and these players had to go through this to kind of get to where they were. It was never just going to be a case of we would cruise this run in. If we were going to get over the line, it was always going to be a scrappy goal where someone, a 1-0 here, a 1-0 there, and just sneaking over the line. And, unfortunately, we've just fallen short instead. I think the optimism will depend on what happens this summer, and like what, hopefully that we're not taking more gambles again next summer and this summer and next season. That's what I want to see, is like, we took these gambles of not getting a striker because we were promised, okay, the long-term plan is there. We probably didn't sign a midfielder. We gave Xhaka a new contract and extended him out because we thought actually it's better to keep him and like manage the squad better. But at some point, all these decisions have to start coming good, and you have to show why you've done these things. So
do you think that if we go in the summer and say sign a striker, basically complete the puzzle, if you like, right? Like they've been talking, about this kind of puzzle, or almost like in different words that's being created. So if we go do those things, Arteta will have had 2.5 full seasons under his belt, right? So he's going into his third full season with a reshaped squad, etc. You know, but ignore everything else that's happening with other teams. Ignore everything else for a second. If he finishes 5th again, is that acceptable?
I would probably say no.
Doesn't it all depend on what the other teams do?
But can you? I guess this is the problem with this, right? Because we can always say that, and unfortunately, that's just the reality of what football's going to be like, right? There's going to be other teams that's going to do. We've got Newcastle, we've got all these kind of other teams doing stuff, and they're all in the same position. They've got other clubs that they are looking around at, saying, "What's this club going to do? What's that club going to do?" I guess one of the, some of the people who have reacted harshest to us not finishing 4th, some of the Arsenal fans who've reacted in that way, to a certain extent, go on a very similar theme to what Jamie Carragher and Gary Neville was sort of saying, was that it's sort of now we're getting into this era that when you have an opportunity to get in the Champions League, you bloody take it, because there's really, really like not that many guarantees that you're going to be there the next season, irrespective of whether you plan the best, etc. And if you look at us, like you said, right, there's other clubs. We might get lucky with Chelsea if they just fold or whatever. Yeah. But aside from that, Man United are going to get better under the new manager. You've got Newcastle doing whatever madness they're doing. There's lots of things. There's lots of other things which might not go in our favor. So again, I guess, I suppose then I'll go to you, Miles. It sounds like you do disagree then. If we finish 5th, would you have to assess what all the other clubs have done before you'd say, I think that Arteta needs to be judged in a harsh way?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really tough one, isn't it? I said at the start of this season, I think it was at the start of this season, we were talking about, I think we were talking about kind of what's success and what's failure. And I can't remember where we predicted and what we thought the target was, but we were kind of saying like 5th is, where we should be trying to finish. And I always, look, it all comes down to points, right? But if you end up finishing 5th by a point on goal difference, whatever, it does make a difference, because you have to look at the manager from the time that they've joined. Okay, obviously position is what dictates how successful you are and trophies and all of that. But at the same time, if you're not looking at first, and you're not looking at, I know we are looking at top 4, but you could potentially argue, some people might argue, that if you're kind of improving your points tally, or not even if you're improving your points tally, if you're a point or 4th come the end of next season, that's not success, but does that warrant failure either? Like, is it as black and white as that? I'm not sure it is. And I'm not saying that it necessarily is or isn't. My worry for next season, the obvious one that Carragher and Neville made about having to juggle Europa League now is big. My worry, like, for example, let me just ask you guys a question. So we've obviously been heavily linked with Gabriel Jesus, right? And it kind of sounds like that deal's personal terms agreed, all of that. Do you think he still signs for Arsenal, knowing we're not in charge?
I don't know. I think it would be, if this long-term plan that we were sold was contingent on us getting Champions League football, then that would be a bit of a stupid long-term plan for the club to build, don't you think?
What do you mean? Sorry,
like we've been sold this, and I think so. To go back to the reason I was saying 5th would be a failure next season is because, like I said, we essentially threw away, to a certain extent, Champions League this season, because we said we are saving it for a long-term plan that we've been building for 3 years. If that 3-year plan doesn't come good next season, then we should have just gone out and gone for broke this season.
Yeah, so I'm not saying that 5th is or isn't failure, but I guess the question I'm asking, fine, I agree with that. But
the question, to go back to your Jesus
like Hayes'
question, so, but then if this long-term plan was then also then contingent on us getting Champions League, when we've just kind of discussed that actually the plan was for us to never have Champions League, because we're building this long-term plan that is basically said we're happy with 5th. We can't be basing and trying to convince targets based on.
But surely that's what happened, right? We were sort of close to Champions League. Jesus is probably a player we've been linked with before, I don't know, but this actually became like a real thing where it looks like we've agreed personal terms with him, having been sitting kind of in 4th place. And, would you not be surprised now if that deal doesn't happen? Because he probably said, I want to wait and see what happens at the end of the season. If Arsenal qualify for the Champions League, yeah, of course, they're going to pay me Champions League money. I'm a Champions League player, which he obviously is.
Maybe that's true.
Yeah, my worry then for next season is now, who do we, if that, like in that scenario, if we just assume for the sake of making an assumption that we don't get Jesus, there's probably a whole load of other players that were in that kind of first bucket of targets that now just become unattainable.
That's fine, but again, the club and the manager and Edu and whoever else is involved should still have a plan for us to compete for Champions League without a Jesus, right? There should be a plan. Say, what is that goal?
But
how are we going to?
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. But the point I was going on to make was that, so now you go into next season, you need a Europa League squad, not a Champions League squad. So it isn't just about who do you bring in, the level of play that you can bring in. Can we bring in that top level striker? But it's also now, okay, you look at an Nketiah, you look at a El Neni, you look at a Cedric, and you say, well, these guys are settled players in the squad. I like them, as in Arteta likes them. I can't afford to bring in a top class, not top class, a very, very good central midfielder. I can't afford to bring in a Tielemans to kind of play play half the games or whatever, So I'm going to have to keep El Neni. I'm going to have to keep Cedric. And so you kind of, that's my kind of initial worry really, is now we build for a Europa League squad where you do have to have squad fillers and sort of 6 out of 10 type players. And they're probably going to get Premier League minutes because that's just how it's going to work, right? Because they're in the squad. And it also means some of the players that we've been linked with, like Jesus, Tielemans are 2 examples. I'm not particularly a massive fan of Tielemans, if I'm being honest, but they still seem that I feel like we were linked with those players because we seem to be favourites for the Champions League up until 2 games ago, and now we're not. I wonder if that changes the focus changes, or the targets change basically.
I find that interesting sometimes, isn't it? Because although I agree with you, I often think if players are really, really using that. So, for example, let's say with Gabriel Jesus, say if he's sitting there going, do you know what? I'm going to join Arsenal if they qualify for the Champions League this season. But if they don't, I'm not. I always find that a bit weird because ultimately there is every chance that we might not be in the Champions League the next season. There's every chance that that's going to happen, right? And if you're signing you're probably going to sign a contract that is 4 or 5 years long. You really need to make peace with the fact that if you join Arsenal right now, there's every chance that we won't be consistently a Champions League team for the next few years. And you've got to just almost accept that. So part of me, but I actually agree with you, Miles, in that I don't think players are that smart.
Yeah, exactly.
I think
genuinely short term.
Well, the agents are good salespeople, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. and all that kind of crap. But I have to say, I sort of think we are in agreement with this. I agree, Aaron, and very much so in that I didn't think that, I personally did not think that going for broke to get top 4 in January through making some kind of plaster type signings was the right thing to do. But that was on the basis that there was some plan. And I've always felt that as much as I'm massively Arteta in, like I massively am, I still think he needs to be judged in the same way that any manager should be judged. I still think, that he shouldn't be absolved of any sort of judgment. But I'm really willing to be patient with whoever the manager is at Arsenal Football Club. So I think if we've given a manager so many windows and so much support, time to kind of embed his ideas, etc., at some point the club needs to ask themselves, how far do they want us to go? And if the owners think that actually they're willing to put in a certain amount of money and are okay for us to continue being a Europa side, fine. Do you know what? If they believe that, then actually that's probably just the way that it's going to go. And Arteta will probably keep his job for however long or whatever. But I'm getting I imagine that now that the Cronkies are investing more money, seemingly kind of every year, right now they've got this strategy where they're willing to stick by it for a little while. But I don't think it'll take that many more windows of them putting their hand in their pocket before they sort of look around a little bit and think, well, hang on a minute, like Tottenham went and signed this like big manager, and actually now they're playing in the Champions League, let's say regularly. I wouldn't be surprised if after they start spending more and more money, they start thinking in that way. Because again, I can't imagine that they are spending this kind of money, because seemingly they are dipping into their own pocket. And I can't imagine they're doing that and will accept playing Europa League football for many more seasons.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's fair. I mean, look, we have to look at it. We haven't been in Europe for a year. Were we in Europe last year? I can't even remember now.
Yeah.
We
went out. Yeah.
It's been that long.
But Unai Emery, mate. Unai Emery.
Oh yeah, of course. I can't forget.
Another painful one. But
yeah. And like playing in Europa League is progress, right? I know that sucks to hear it now, but it is. We could have played in the Conference League next season. Like,
yeah, I know.
So it's. I think it's the expectation. I've always said I think my expectation was at the start of the season for us to finish 5th. Anything lower would be failure. But I think that the reason I said like why I thought we should have gone a bit more short term is if we start badly next season, there's nowhere for Arteta to hide anymore.
Yeah,
like he's had 3 years, 2.5, whatever. He's had a lot of windows. He's had that. We're not going to buy now because we're going to buy big in summer, and all this whole plan is going to come together, and the fans will start to get impatient.
We're not going to start badly next season, mate. Like when you say badly, we might lose the first 1 or 2, but we're not going to go. We're not going to be like 10 games in and we're sitting in the bottom half of the table.
But I mean, like let's say 10 games in, we're 7th or 8th.
Unless we're playing Man City every week. Well, 7th. Okay. Well,
I don't even think we have to go that extreme. I think if we start the way that we started this season, he's got a big problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think fans will generally be a bit more patient in 3 games, but
yeah, I agree.
Like, let's say 7, 8, 9 games in, and it's clear that.
But you can't say that, mate, because that again, I maybe I don't know, maybe I'm looking at this differently, but that you say if we're sitting 7th, for example, after 10 games, the top 7, or apart from like the top 3, could be really congested. It could be like a point between the 3 of like.
I think
like
it's
okay. Season, yeah.
I would almost say forget about the league position.
Yeah.
But to actually say the way the team is looking, the way we're playing, because the next season, it has to come together, right? And if it doesn't look like it's coming together, if the attack is still looking a bit confused, if there's no real structure the way we play, if we're still, let's just say if we're still bringing on Cedric, or we're still bringing on Nketiah off the bench, or we're El Neni's still getting minutes, for example, then if the plan isn't looking like it's coming together, I think fans will start to turn, and we're losing games at a somewhat frequent basis still. But if we had got Champions League this summer and we were 7th in a very similar place, I think fans would have been a bit more patient with him. I think it effectively would have bought him another year. And he, by not gambling on a player, and look, it's all hindsight. It's all very easy to say it's with hindsight, right? We could have bought someone and he might have been terrible, right? And we might not have done anything, right? But I think it's fair to assume 1 or 2 more reinforcements would have probably got us the 3 points or 4 points that we needed. It's really put the pressure on him for next season.
Well, I take progress next season. So for example, if we finish next season 5th, but say, we won the FA Cup, or if we won the Europa League or something like that, I think that's still something that we could be proud about, and I think that at least there's progress. But I think he needs to progress every season now. It's not like he can take a season to just go, oh, I've dipped again. Oh well, because I think to warrant that, you need to have achieved something. And like you say, if he had achieved top 4, then maybe he could get away with another dip. But he's had a lot of support, and rightfully so. And I'm actually optimistic, by the way, right?
So am I.
I'm not. Yeah, exactly. So I'm obviously just really disappointed that we've lost today and that we're not going to play Champions League football. I'm disappointed just as a fan who always wants us to do as well as we can, right? But at the same time, I do believe that actually, in some ways, playing in the Europa League is just another opportunity for these young players to try and achieve something a little bit more achievable. It's just something else which won't necessarily have the same pressure as the Champions League. And it is a young squad. The actual bigger concern that I have is something that Mai said, which I think is only really magnified since he said it in my mind, which is that I don't want the fact that we're playing Europa League to be an excuse for us to kind of go, actually, you know what? Some of these people that we weren't getting rid of.
It will, mate. I think you can
we
see it
might as well-
happening,
Yeah, that is
right?
a big worry.
Because the problem is it then takes you another season to move
Yeah,
on from
exactly.
that. Right.
100%. But you can
Yeah.
because obviously the work that we had to do, even if we got Champions League, was massive
Yeah.
because we've had a squad that is sort of fit for Premier League only or domestic competitions only. Excuse me. So yeah, I think it's almost like a case of there's too much to do in one window. We'll do or maybe not on any like Cedric, for example. We'll keep him this season and try and sort. We're not going to get any money for him next season. Like there's going to be that kind of thinking because they've got to address so many problems and grow the squad and deal with all the players that are coming back from loan and working out what's happening with them, which I'm sure is kind of already happening anyway. But and sorting out, like I don't know, like Eddie just seems like a perfect. I said this before, right? A few episodes ago. Eddie's a perfect Europa League player for me, but he's not. I'm not saying we should keep him on that basis, but there's also a big. You've also got to think about it like this, right? There's a big from a manager and coach's perspective to have the same faces there next season and know the player that you're coaching versus bringing in like another type Nketiah type player in terms of maybe a young striker who you want to kind of mold and grow, whatever, and is going to play like 10 or 20 games in the season, you'd probably say, I'd just rather keep Nketiah. It's just so much less hassle. Yeah, he's not going to be an Aubameyang, but I know what I'm going to get from him. He's already settled in the squad. He knows everyone. I know he fits in, blah, blah, blah. Like from a manager perspective, when you're managing 20, 25 players, that's probably quite a big thing. So,
but do you think Arteta really wants that, mate? Because I get the impression with Arteta, he genuinely is very aspirational. And I think he is.
But I think he likes Eddie. I think he likes Eddie.
If he likes Eddie and Eddie comes good, that's fine. And if Eddie doesn't come good,
I don't know if Eddie's going to come good, but I'm saying I think he likes Eddie.
Well, that's on the manager, right? If Eddie's not good,
yeah, no. But I'm just talking at what Raj was saying. The concern about kind of what do we do in the summer, basically, now that we've got Europa League football instead of Champions League football. I'm saying when you've got Champions League football, you absolutely have to go and get, if you want to do anything in the Champions League, even if we're going to probably get out of your group, considering we would have been second pot, third pot, we wouldn't have been seeded, you probably have to go and buy top quality and you have the budget to back that and whatever. When you get Europa League, it's very, very different. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the guys we're seeing now and we're sort of complaining about now are still around next season.
But do you think that's acceptable?
I don't know. I mean, as a fan, there's obviously players that I like and players I don't like, right? So, and players I rate and players I don't. So, of course, I'm going to say Cedric, let's sell him. And Nketiah, let him go. I'd rather replace him with someone else. But it's all football manager stuff.
I mean, like, if let's assume that Arteta's also, sees what we see or sees what you see in the players, right? Let's just take Cedric, El Neni. Nketiah's probably gone.
But El Neni is the perfect Europa League group stage player. He's the perfect. Yeah, of course he is. Well, like so you can rest your central midfield. You know what you're going to get from him. He's on low wages. He's not going to complain about being a bit part player. He is solid enough. He does a job. Like Raj said, he never makes a glaring error. He's never the Xhaka of the team where every 10 games he does a complete cock up and costs the team the game or cost the game. So of course he is. Yeah. Like for 6-8 games, or I don't know how many games the initial stage of the Europa League is anymore because of changing it, whatever. But let's say 6, 8, 10 games, you just rely on him and chuck him in and it means you can rest Thomas Partey. Surely, like it makes complete sense, right? Like what is there to question? I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but I'm saying if you're Arteta, you would probably look at it like that because you're now not looking at, I need to build a Champions League squad. I need 3 Thomas Parteys in my squad. No, you don't need 3 Thomas. You can't afford to have 3 Thomas Parteys in your squad.
No, but I think in an ideal world, I think the way we should be building this team is like, well, okay, we're not in the Champions League, but we should be, to get top 4 in the Premier League, you basically need a Champions League level squad now. Just about, like, we would have fluked it, at least not like somewhat close to having Champions League. And if we're going to be competing regularly for top 4, we should still be building a Champions League level squad anyway. So I think. Oh yeah,
I agree, and I think
we need to be ruthless. And I think if we do still keep players like El Neni, if we do still keep players, I'd probably include Xhaka in this. I'd include Cedric. I'd include Holding, if I'm being ruthless.
I see all of those players being at Arsenal next season.
Yeah,
maybe not on any, because I think his contract's up, right? So maybe not him. I think Cedric, apparently, like Ramsdale did the Peter Crouch podcast. I don't know if you guys heard it, but he basically said Cedric is like Arteta's little teacher's pet. He loves him. Yeah. So again, it comes back to what we see on the pitch is different to what Arteta sees on the training ground, and behind the scenes, as it were.
But that's different if Arteta wants to keep him, right? And that's his judgment, and if that's his decision, that's fine. But if Arteta realizes that Cedric isn't good enough, we keep him because we can just about tolerate him at a Europa League level, and he sticks around. And then let's be real, he'll probably end up playing.
How's that going to work? Sorry to interrupt, but so whatever the case, Arteta's going to keep him if he wants him, but he's not. If he doesn't want to keep him, he's not going to keep him, right?
No, but it's more just like if Arteta wants to get rid of him, or says like this player's not good enough.
Yeah.
But actually, to sell him, we might not get enough money, and we don't have the money to reinvest in a squad player for the Europa League, when someone else could say, actually, if you keep him, you can just play him for 6 games in the Europa League and he'll be all right. And then we kind of just settle, put it that way, for a player like Cedric.
That's the point, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think that's acceptable. I don't think that's acceptable. I think we should be building.
But in fairness, mate, because we are in Europe, we need a bigger squad anyway.
Yeah.
So let's say a lot of those
we
players
need a bigger squad, and we need a better squad, though.
Yeah, but let's just say those players stay, right? So a lot of those names that you played that you mentioned stay. Let's say they stay, fine, whatever. We still need basically another player in all of those positions anyway. So those players, Cedric, your El Nenis, whoever, Holdings, etc., they just go lower and lower in the pecking order, and they will get games in the in the Europa or in the Carling Cup or the whatever. Like they will play those minutes. I suppose for me, I guess where I'm going with this is I'm sort of okay with that happening as long as we do buy those other players,
the first team,
for the first team,
the first 11. Yeah.
Like and my only concern is that
the first 11 and like plus 4 or 5 subs, right?
Yeah, fine. Yeah. But so my concern, I guess, is if we don't, and if we kind of go, actually, maybe we can actually rely on this guy a little bit more and all that kind of stuff. I really don't want that. Anyway, look, it feels like we're going to have loads more opportunity for squad building conversations. It's going to be a long summer, although actually calendar-wise a shorter summer, right? Because we actually start. So
before you move on, where's the Europa League final next season?
I don't know. We probably should look that up. I don't know. The other thing I was thinking that's quite interesting, which we probably didn't reflect on, is because of the changes in the Champions League kind of qualification stuff. Actually, after, is it 2024? The fifth place is probably good enough to finish in the Champions League. If
don't do this. I look forward to the race for fifth now.
Yeah. But don't be surprised though, right? If that does factor in their minds a little bit, if they're building this team for the future, in inverted commas, 2024 isn't that far away. If Liverpool, Man City carry on doing the way that they're doing, and Chelsea, the likelihood is we will get that 5th place will be available to the Premier League. So I wonder if that does factor into, what the owners are thinking right now. But anyway, plenty of time to talk about that another time, because we've run up quite a lot of time already. Very, very quickly talking about the Everton game. It just feels like an incredibly frustrating game to even think about. I'm not sure anyone has much to say about it, aside from how do you think the guys are going to approach it? Do you think that they're going to play with any level of motivation after what you've just seen? Conversely, do you think that actually they probably think, well, we've got literally nothing to lose because
we're gonna win like 5-0 now, aren't we?
Well, if we win like 14-0 and Spurs draw, then it's back on. But I don't know, man. It's going to be a bit anticlimactic, isn't it? We'll probably win. I think Spurs will probably win, and that'll be that.
I bet you Spurs go 1 down, and then we get all excited, and then they come back to win,
and they win 5-1 or something.
Something always happens on the final day that like makes you a little bit excited.
It would be really funny if they lost there, wouldn't it? Like, after all this. If they lost.
No, let's not,
but the worst thing that could happen is they lose and we don't win.
Yeah, or even worse is that they draw and we win, and then it goes to goal difference, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And then it comes back to what we were talking about, Raj, about that point at Liverpool.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It really does. It really does. Can't believe that we've got in this situation where it's come this close. Yeah, but again, we were talking about it in our chat right now. It's that time of the season now where when things get this close that you reflect on all those marginal games throughout the season.
Yeah.
I was thinking about the game that Tottenham won in injury time against Leicester when they scored 2 goals in the 94th and 95th minute or whatever. I was thinking even the other games that kind of just didn't go for us, like the Brighton game when Martinelli's goal was ruled offside, and the amount of angles they took to look at that. Those kind of games, those kind of results. I'm sure there's others if we could kind of just really go through them. And it's tough, isn't it? It's really tough.
I can't help but feel, despite how bad we played today, that we have just been horrendously unlucky as well this season. Just with injuries, like
you're not going to say VAR and
like just decisions. Like I know people say that these things even themselves out, but
I don't think we've been unlucky with injuries, mate. I think
sometimes we've been.
I mean, today we had no fullbacks. We had no fullbacks. We had two centre backs who could barely.
We had Tommy Asu. What do you mean we had no?
But he went off, didn't he? And then
okay, but
and then so we had Tavares, we had Cedric.
But we've had
we have had no striker for basically the second half of the season.
That's not down to injuries, though, is it? That's the squad. Like we played the players we had two strikers. And we played them both.
That's not down to injuries. That's not bad.
I don't know, man. I think we had like Partey played most of the season. I know he's been injured a while. Tierney played half the season. Yeah, okay, it's not ideal, but Ben White and Gabriel stayed fit up until now, pretty much. They played like almost every game. Ben White was only out for the last couple of games. Xhaka has been fit the whole season. Saka's been fit the whole season. Erdegaard's been fit the whole season.
Yeah, look, it's one of those things, mate. Though, but you look at it, and Tottenham came into the game against us, and they lost Romero and Reguilon, who starts them. Had been out for a little while. So I think teams have it anyway. It is what it is, huh?
Europa League final, Budapest next season.
Oh, that'd wicked! My return to Budapest.
So, how early should we? Yeah,
book it now.
Book it now. I don't know if it might be a bit early, but yeah, let's book up, man. And then Dublin the year after, and Bilbao the year after that. If you're interested,
it's some fun trips if we get there.
Some really good trips.
What about the group stages?
It's gonna be a slog, isn't it? Just what's that? Karabag and Olympiacos. No, Olympiacos were probably the Champions League, weren't they? I don't even know. Some random French team.
Anyway.
It was a fun
boys. S1 perspective. It could be worse. We could be Man United. Remember,
we could be Man United.
Let's hope they don't do a madness this summer. But anyway, listen, guys, it's been a pleasure going through this pain with you guys. Thank you for doing. I genuinely feel better after this. By the way,
I don't.
I actually do. I genuinely feel better.
Because now I'm going to go on Twitter and all the other places and start reading everything. It's just going to be like, oh man.
Tomorrow's the worst one when you wake up in the morning.
Yeah. First,
just like,
we haven't mentioned. We really did mention the fact that we lasted so long without conceding, and then to concede after a foul throw, which I know is debatable as to whether it was a foul throw or not, but. To think that you do everything you can, you hold it together, you make blocks, you make stuff.
It wasn't a foul throw.
It wasn't a foul throw.
I know it means nothing now because we deserve to lose, but weird decision.
What's
that mean? Bad luck.
Yeah. Anyway, all right, guys. Thank you everyone for listening. If you kept with us this whole time, really respect to you guys. To be honest, respect to anyone who's listened to this whole episode, unless you're a Tottenham fan, which. I imagine that because I know there are some Tottenham fans. There's a few of you guys. I know who you are. Steve, Jason, both of you. I know that you two specific people who listened to the whole of this episode when we lost to you the other day. Yeah, they did, So
wankers.
so hopefully you guys we do really appreciate your views. But
no, we don't. Get off, tell them to unsubscribe. We don't need them.
We're gonna go into single digits then, mate. If you're not careful. Okay. All right, guys. All right, on that note, listen, if you have listened this whole way, please like, subscribe, share, all those good things. And we are going to record not on the whistle on Sunday, but probably soonish the week after, and just kind of do a debrief. We'll think of something fun to do. But cool. Thank you for joining us, guys. Everyone have a good week. I know it's going to be maybe a little bit of a tough one, but hopefully we helped you digest. So Take care and goodbye.
Thank
Cheers,
you,
guys.
bye.
See you guys.
Try